It's time now for Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join News Director Paul David and News Editor Philip Catalfamo as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics in Yavapai County that affect all our lives. And now here's today's Countywide.
Welcome back to another episode of Countywide. I'm your host, Philip Catalfamo. I'd like to thank you for joining me. On today's show, we are talking with Central Arizona Fire and Medical Chief Scott Freitag. Chief Freitag, welcome on to the show.
Good morning, Phil. Thank you for having me.
Well, we're very happy to have you, Chief. There is a instance going on, a phenomenon, I guess, of just response times with ambulances that are just not getting where they need to go in the area you serve. And it seems through our conversation in a lot of areas that we're getting delayed response times between ambulances. So I wanted to talk about that. First and foremost, I wanted to ask you what level zero is. We've heard a lot about level zero. Right. If you've been following the story of what we're talking about today with delayed response times of ambulances, but level zero seems to be a term that's been used in several instances. So I want to ask you, Chief, first and foremost, what is level zero and how does it apply to what we're talking about today?
So in short, level zero means that there are no ambulances available. In the ABC 15 story that I know you saw, we talked about earlier, AMR officials said level zero is simply an industry term, meaning they've used the last ambulance and only lasts for seconds. And that's just not true. You can go back to phone calls between AMR Dispatch and Prescott Regional Communications Center where AMR Dispatch calls and says, hey, we don't have an ambulance for your cardiac arrest call on Glassford Hill Road. We also don't have an ambulance for this call, or this call. We're at level zero, no units available. That's not seconds. And we're running into this on average about 6 times a day. Between July 1st, December 31st of 2021, 760 instances of no ambulances available to respond to calls within the Quad City area.
I mean, what could be the cause of that? I mean, what is causing this shortage of ambulances? And actually, let's take it a step forward. Let's take it a step back here, back to level one. In a normal situation, how do you utilize level zero?
How do we use it?
Well, not you specifically,
right.
But in any other normal circumstance, because obviously this isn't normal, which is why we're talking about it. But in any normal circumstance, what justifies a level zero call?
There really isn't any justification for it. It's just that someone calls 911. We are dispatched to the call, and our dispatch tells us, hey, we don't have an ambulance to assign to this call for you. And that's what they're getting from the AMR dispatcher. So,
not very common to be getting that constantly, right?
No, it shouldn't be. Not like what we're seeing. I mean, I come from Missouri, and in the system I was in there for 20 years, I never saw this. We never had a level zero situation in 20 years. Yeah. And to have this many level zeros occurring this often, it's a true detriment to the system, and it's a safety issue for our citizens.
Chief, you mentioned it, between July 1st and December 31st, there were 760 incidences of no ambulance available for calls.
Correct.
Why? Why? I feel like I'm attacking. I'm sorry if I'm a little aggressive. I just mean more so. What is the cause of this issue? So
what we're seeing is, and if you go back just briefly, we started expressing concerns with ambulance response times over 6 years ago. And back then, there were typically 11 paramedic staffed units in our system in the Quad Cities. Today, we're lucky to see 3 or 4 staffed with medics. Sometimes we'll see as many as 5 or 6 ambulances, but 2 or 3 of those will be EMT only, not paramedic. So it's a reduction in resources by the corporate AMR, while at the same time we've seen significant increases in call volume. So it just stands to reason that if you decrease the number of units you have at a time when call volume is up significantly, you're going to end up with level zero. So it's a staffing and resource issue, decisions made by corporate AMR. And if we remember, AMR is a for-profit company, right, and they're ultimately owned by a private equity firm out of New York called KKR.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask, along with these issues like you mentioned, obviously your district is not the only one, or department is not the only one that is experiencing this issue. I mean, you and I have talked about a few instances where there's a few cities and municipalities around this area that are also struggling with some of these response times.
Well, the city of Prescott is seeing the same things we are, but they have an agreement with AMR. It doesn't add any capacity to their system, but it does prevent them from speaking publicly about the issues that they're facing. But when you look at the city of Kingman, city of Lake Havasu, Golden Valley Fire District, you look at the city of Casa Grande, just as a few examples, you see the exact same issue. There was an afternoon in which 3 Kingman fire engines were on 3 separate calls. All 3 transport units were coming from Lake Havasu, an hour away. Well, Kingman has 5 stations. You have 3 tied up right there for an hour each, waiting for ambulances to get there. And that's not an uncommon occurrence in that area. So you see this across the state, specifically in areas where you have one private company, AMR, that has a monopoly. You're seeing the same issues across the board.
You know, I can't imagine there's obviously these struggles in an area like Prescott Valley or Prescott, much larger in terms of population, but if you go even further, maybe more, I guess, east, would be into the White Mountains of like Greenlee and some of these more smaller communities, Seligman. I guess Williams is smaller than a few cities, but you know, it's very scary to think that if you're in, not that it could happen, but potentially. I mean, if you're living in Greenlee and you're at home and you get sick or you fall or something like that, and you're calling an ambulance, I mean, that response time might be 2-3 times more than what you're used to potentially. It
could be, and in the city of Williams, they have a carve-out in CON 62. CON is the license to operate your ambulance. And CON 62 covers 8,667 square miles, and that includes the Quad City area, along with the city of Williams. They have a carve-out that says they're supposed to be there in 10 minutes. Well, there were just recent articles published in Williams about a high school football player who broke his leg and was laying on the field for an hour and a half waiting for ambulance transport. Somebody kicked at the rodeo grounds, waited over an hour for ambulance transport. Police officer doing CPR on scene for over 30 minutes, and the ambulance didn't arrive for over 50 minutes. These are common occurrences, and the ambulance is supposed to respond in 10 minutes. But part of what's happening is, because we don't have the resources in the Quad Cities, AMR will pull resources from Wickenburg and Williams. When they do that, there's a cascading effect in systems throughout the state where now there's other holes. So if you pull Williams, there's no one to really back Williams up. If you pull Wickenburg, then they pull units from other areas of the valley, including around Glendale, to go to Wickenburg, which is extended response time. Then the City of Phoenix Fire Department ends up running into those areas to provide additional backup resources, and that it does not make the city of Phoenix very happy.
Well, even like you had mentioned the issue with Kingman as well, where you had 3 units just tied up in the city.
Yeah.
They weren't even going out to other areas. They were tied up in the city. So, obviously when you have delayed response time for ambulances, like you said, sometimes you get the fire departments helping out if they can, which is pulling other resources out to respond to fires or other EMS calls.
Correct.
So a very, very big issue here throughout the state of Arizona. I'm sure it's applicable to other areas outside of our state. But if you want more information, cazfire.org is the website. Their phone number 928-772-7711. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Central Arizona Fire Medical Chief Scott Freitag right here on Countywide. Don't go anywhere.
Terrifying jobs. Bull Rider, take 2. Cliff, this seems like a really terrifying job. Why do you do it?
I love protecting the bull riders when they get bucked up.
How big are these bulls?
12 to 2,200 pounds of pure muscle.
You're not cowed by any of this, obviously. Is there anything that scares you?
Yeah, distracted drivers terrify me.
Two things we can count on every year.
A new set of tax rules and great weather here in northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
The EPA says C&B Construction ranks in the top 1% nationally. C&B Construction invites you to see what energy efficiency and indoor air quality can be. We have won another Department of Energy Innovation Award, and C&B Construction is the only contractor in the country to win 6 consecutive EPA Indoor Air Plus awards. Experience our zero-energy, move-in-ready homes at Crossroads at Mingus.
C&B Construction, locally respected, nationally recognized. Find out more at C&B Homes.com.
Award-winning Soundbites Grill is an entertainment restaurant located in Uptown Sedona at the Hyatt Pinion Point Resort. Open for lunch and dinner, featuring fresh fish, all-natural hand-cut beef, even a full vegan menu. Family-friendly, open 11:30 to 9, late dining on Friday and Saturday. Soundbites Grill has some of the best views of the Sedona Red Rocks. Offers world-class entertainment, food, fun, and music.
I want to welcome you back to Countywide. On today's show, we are speaking with Central Arizona Fire Chief Scott Freitag. I am your host, Philip Catalfamo. We are speaking about delayed ambulance responses and level 0, an issue that has been affecting northern Arizona, outside of Arizona. There's been a lot of issues with that. Chief, we were talking, of course, about you guys sort of trying to alleviate some of these issues we've seen. We mentioned a statistic between July 1st and December 31st, 760 incidences of no ambulances available for calls. Ambulance reform was something you really, really wanted to hit. I know you guys are trying to get the attention of Governor Doug Ducey right now and the entire Arizona state legislature. So ambulance reform, let's talk about it.
So in 1999, there was an Arizona Auditor General's report that was very critical of the process and statute in Arizona regarding ambulance licensing. That report called for significant reform. That was 1999. If you read that today, all you would have to do is change 99 to 2022. So nearly a quarter century and nothing has changed. The state commissioned the report. The state then ignored the report. So what we're trying to do is revive that and say, look, the fact that the state ignored this, or the result of ignoring it, is what we're seeing today, right? It led to where we are with these problems. So it's a hefty reform bill because it's never been touched and it needs to. And part of that is removing some of the roadblocks to free market competition, because the way that it sits today, AMR is able to try and block anyone that would try to come into an area where they have the monopoly and prevent any additional ambulance transport services from operating. Right. Yet at the same time, they're not providing the services. And for DHS's part, they look at the statute and say, well, as far as we can tell, there are ambulances there. You know, you and I talked before, and this has been a little sarcastic. Okay, a lot sarcastic, but you know, second day air is pretty good for us, right? Oh yeah. And Amazon, in some places, you can get it same day service. That seems to be how DHS looks at the ambulance. Well, they're there. Yeah, but they're not responding. But they're there. Right. There's a difference between same day or second day shipping and medical transport services. Right. You want those as quickly as possible, and we're not getting them. The other part of that is there's really no oversight into response data reporting. So the ambulance service has to report their data to the state on an annual basis. Our agency, fire departments, governmental entities, we put our data out and publish it monthly. Anyone can look at it. You can't see any data provided by private ambulance companies. And what we're saying is, no, you need to start looking at this, because we've filed complaints with the state alleging that AMR is putting units on scene prior to their arrival. Well, that would certainly skew the data to make it look like they're performing when they're not.
Right.
And we have screen grabs, everything of that. And then the other part of that is there's some question at the state level. They don't even know whether AMR is supposed to report those times, those instances when we transport, which means there was a performance failure on the ambulance transport company's part. Well, you can make it look like you're doing a great job if you don't have to report when you fail.
Yeah. Well, even like you had said, it feels like they're just sort of checking the box of minimum requirements.
Correct.
Like you had said, they're sending ambulances out to locations before they even get there. So it seems like, okay, well, no, sorry, our ambulance unit was here when it was supposed to be here, or it was somewhere else and it couldn't respond. But it's really disappointing to know that there's a monopoly on ambulance services.
Yeah.
It's terrible. I mean, I know there's already a monopoly on the medical service in general.
Right.
But it's terrible that now it's not now, but it's been affecting our ambulance services because, that directly affects, not everybody's going to get prescription pills, but everybody at some point is going to need an ambulance.
Sure.
I mean, realistically. But you guys are trying to alleviate the problem in-house. I know you had been borrowing 3 ambulances, using them as rescues, one from the Mesa Fire Department, one from Northwest out of Tucson, one from Sun City Fire. You've also purchased what you told me was a demo ambulance, which
yes.
you can clarify a little bit, because I think it does need a little bit of clarification. But I want to ask, obviously these units aren't coming from local areas. So, I mean, how did you kind of build that relationship with these guys outside of your own jurisdiction? Sure. Did you tell them what was going on? They kind of understand? I mean, I'm sure there's a brotherhood, and I use that term loosely, but I'm sure that there's a brotherhood of firemen. Sure. Whenever you guys need something, they make it happen. But, it's great that you're building these relationships outside. But how has this alleviated the problem? And let's talk about that vehicle you guys purchased.
So first and foremost, the Arizona Fire Service has an amazing ability to connect and work together across the state. And it's something I've never experienced before anywhere else. And we just have fantastic relationships. Mesa loaned us 2, Northwest 1, and then Sun City. And the reason they did that is because Mesa has gone through what we're going through up here. And ultimately, Mesa has relieved AMR of their responsibilities for providing services in the city of Mesa because they weren't performing.
Right.
Similar issues, urban area. Northwest Fire went through 3 years of this years back where they were running rescues until they finally were able to get their CON, again, because the private company wasn't performing. Sun City used a rescue setup until they got their CON for the exact same reasons. So these other agencies understood and understand what we're going through. They had resources they could loan us, so we did that. But like with most things, there's a definition for borrow, and it doesn't mean you get to keep it.
Right.
So eventually you have to give those resources back. Well, we have proof of concept that by us running the rescues, we are making a difference in the system, even if we're working in a very narrow window. In December, we transported 40 patients and should have transported 100 and something patients, but again, trying to follow statute, not get in trouble. So in order for us to give these units back, we have to replace them with something. Unfortunately, the ambulance market today, both used and new, is much like buying a car. The used market the prices are outrageous. They're charging almost a new car price for a used unit that has 150,000 miles on it. And trying to custom order one or build one, you don't know when or if you will get that unit. So what we did was we looked around. We found 3 demo units. So they're ones that a manufacturer built to show to other agencies and say, here's what we build. This is our product. Do you want to buy something like this? And in this case, we bought that unit.
Store model, if you will, respectively, of course.
Yeah, we bought the store model. Hey, you have this sitting right here. I'll take that one. So we bought 3 brand new ones, and then we bought 1 used. Now, the used one we're buying from Northwest Fire as long as their board ratifies the sale agreement, and we won't know that until the end of next week. Okay. But that was a good unit, and working together between agencies, I think it makes us stronger. So we have been transporting patients in these units, which is far better than transporting a patient and treating them in the back of a private vehicle. Mm-hmm. We've had to treat and transport a stroke patient in the back seat of their own car. We've had to treat and transport an elderly female with a fractured hip in the back seat of her own car because we couldn't get an ambulance transport. We've transported people in engines, and we're just at a point where we can't continue doing that. It's not good for the patients.
No, of course not. Although I know if you could, you would.
Yes.
But CAZfire.org is the website. 928-772-7711 is the phone number. We're going to take a quick break, but we will be right back. Don't go anywhere. Countywide, we'll be right back.
Terrifying jobs. Bull Rider, take 2.
Cliff, this seems like a really terrifying job. Why do you do it?
I love protecting the bull riders when they get bucked off.
How big are these bulls?
12 to 2,200 pounds of pure muscle.
You're not cowed by any of this, obviously. Is there anything that scares you?
Yeah, distracted drivers terrify me.
Two things we can count on every year:
a new set of tax rules and great weather here in northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
The EPA says C&B Construction ranks in the top 1% nationally. C&B Construction invites you to see what energy efficiency and indoor air quality can be. We have won another Department of Energy Innovation Award, and C&B Construction is the only contractor in the country to win 6 consecutive EPA Indoor Air Plus awards. Experience our zero-energy, move-in ready homes at Crossroads at Mingus.
C&B Construction, locally respected, nationally recognized. Find out more at candbhomes.com.
Award-winning Soundbites Grill is an entertainment restaurant located in uptown Sedona at the Hyatt Pinion Point Resort. Open for lunch and dinner, featuring fresh fish, all-natural hand-cut beef, even a full vegan menu. Family-friendly, open 11:30 to 9, late dining on Friday and Saturday. Soundbites Grill has some of the best views of the Sedona Red Rocks. Offers world-class entertainment, food, fun, and music.
I want to welcome you back to Countywide. On today's show, we are speaking with Central Arizona Fire Chief Scott Freitag. We talked about some of the issues that his jurisdiction and a lot of other jurisdictions here in northern Arizona and throughout the entire state is dealing with delayed response times for ambulances or just not enough available ambulances.
Correct.
We've only got a few minutes, Chief, so first and foremost, anybody want any more information, not only just about the department, but also about the situation, CAZfire.org is the place to go. Go check out all of that. They've also got a Facebook page as well. They've got a lot of information about what we talked about today. Phone number 928-772-7711. Chief, we've got a couple minutes here. Just some non-ambulance things that you guys are also talking about. Just real quick, you were submitting a safer grant to the board agenda, the fire board's agenda for their next meeting later this month. I just want to ask, what are you looking to accomplish with those funds before we wrap up the show?
So we're going to ask our board if we can submit a safer grant for 5 new operations positions. As we've talked about, our call volume's gone up significantly, and it's taking a toll on our personnel, and we need some additional staffing. Approving the submittal of the SAFER grant doesn't mean that they have to accept the SAFER grant, because we still have to ensure as we go throughout the year that if we hire those 5 people 2 to 3 years down the line, we can take over 100% of their salaries. I don't think it's going to be a problem, but it would really help our agency out to get those additional positions.
Chief, I want to thank you very much for what you do and raising awareness for this issue. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are very excited that somebody's finally talking about this and getting this problem solved, and hopefully it starts a ripple effect with some of those other areas we had talked about, some of those other problem areas for this particular issue. But I do thank you very much for coming on the show and taking the time to come down to the studio.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
we appreciate
of course.
it.
Again, CAZ Fire is their website. CAZfire.org is their website. 928-772-7711 is the phone number. That is going to do it for this episode of Countywide. I'm your host, Philip Catalfamo, wishing you a great rest of your week. We'll see you next time.